When Ethan gave my job to the new female neighbor, I didn't cry or make a fuss. I silently packed my luggage and applied to join the North China Petroleum Exploration Team. In my previous life, my application for becoming a regular employee was swapped by Ethan and the job ended up going to the new neighbor, Snowy. When I got the application form again after being reborn, who would have thought that suddenly subtitles appeared in front of me? Haha, a supporting female character is just a supporting female character. At this time, she still doesn't know that she's making wedding clothes for the female lead. Tisk tisk, how pitiful. Not only will the application form in her hand be given to the female lead by the male lead, but she will also live alone for 30 years after getting married. It's truly miserable. Although everything the supporting female character does is to make way for the female lead, I still feel a bit sorry for her. What should I do? I looked at the blank application form in my hand blankly. A few days ago, Ethan had repeatedly told me that when I got the application form, I mustn't write my name on it. He said that my handwriting wasn't nice and that he would write it for me. 01. Oh, why did she stop? It's okay. The male lead can't wait to come and get the application form. Tisk tisk. If it were me, I would definitely fill in the form right away and submit it in person. Let the shameless male lead and female lead go to hell. Hey, the one upstairs. If the female lead, Snowy, can't get the form, she won't be able to enter the art troupe either. If the female lead can't enter the art troupe, how can she be with the male lead, Ethan, later? If she can't enter, then she can't enter. Doesn't the supporting female character have human rights? Does she deserve to be delayed by these two lunatics for a lifetime? Oh, stop arguing. Look, the supporting female character is back again. I looked at the blank form in my hand blankly. Male lead? Female lead? Supporting female character? What were all these? It said that my application form would be taken by Ethan and given to Snowy? I walked back in a daze. Then, in a daze, I wrote my name on the form stroke by stroke. By the time I saw Ethan again, I was already standing outside the gate of the art troupe. 02. Ethan's face was very ugly. He was panting, looking as if he had chased me all the way here. Lana, where's the form? Ethan stretched out his hand towards me. The man was over 1.8 meters tall, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and he was really good-looking. He had a good appearance and a good job. Moreover, he was quite ambitious and got promoted last year. This year, he was even expected to be transferred to a higher position. If I hadn't already been engaged to him, I'm afraid I wouldn't have had the tzika to stand beside him long ago. Once upon a time, I had eyes only for him. Hurry up, supporting female character. Submit the form by yourself. Don't give it to the male lead, ha ha ha. If you submit it like this, your life will be ruined. The only chance to change your fate is going to be given away like this. Alas, oh, how could the evil supporting female character be like this? Why hasn't she given the form to the male lead yet? My kind-hearted and beautiful female lead, Snowy, is still waiting for the form to sign up. Those inexplicable words appeared in front of me again. I suddenly felt a pain in my head, as if some memories that didn't belong to me rushed in. When the throbbing pain subsided, I realized that I had been reborn. In my previous life, my fiancé, Ethan, secretly wrote Snowy's name on my application form for becoming a regular employee in order to help Snowy, his childhood sweetheart who had just become a widow, enter the art troupe smoothly. And fearing that I would find out about this, he secretly opened the window the night before the official entry and let me blow cold wind all night. The next day, because of a high fever, I missed the entry, and Snowy successfully took my place and entered the art troupe. Later, because of her good performance, Snowy became the leading actress in the art troupe. During the years when Ethan was promoted step by step, Snowy also took advantage of his influence and accompanied him with her daughter all the way. As for me, who couldn't enter the art troupe, less than 2 months after I married Ethan, he was transferred. When I was 30 years old, as I had little time with Ethan, I finally got pregnant with a child. My son was weak and had been in poor health since childhood. When the child was 5 years old, Ethan said that he wanted to give our son a better education, so he took our son away. I also wanted to go with them, but he said that both of our parents were old and asked me to stay at home to take care of the elderly and wait for a few years before going there. But this wait lasted for a full 30 years. I sent off one elderly person after another, and it was not until I was nearly 50 that I reunited with my husband and son. However, due to the long separation over the years, although I went to be with them, I always felt like an outsider. Moreover, Snowy had been with Ethan all these years and took good care of my son. When I returned to Ethan's side after 30 years, my son only had eyes for Snowy, his godmother, and was only distant, polite and even disgusted with me. Even walking with me made him feel ashamed. Look at your godmother and then look at yourself. Can you stay away from me? He even complained to Ethan, Dad, I've already told you to let her stay in the countryside. Why did you let her come here? It's so embarrassing, you know? Although Ethan didn't say anything, he never went out with me. Even the guests who came to our house once thought that I was their nanny. Ethan and his son were the same, with eyes only for Snowy. Although they lived under the same roof with me, apart from asking me to wash clothes and cook, they hardly said another word to me, and I watched the elegant and composed Snowy sitting leisurely in my house, drinking tea every day. She even openly went around with Ethan, looking at myself wearing coarse cloth floral clothes for the elderly. How could I not feel inferior? Later, on the day of my son's wedding, he actually called Snowy Mom in front of everyone. Those who didn't know the truth all thought that Snowy standing beside Ethan was my son's biological mother. With my inferiority, timidity, unwillingness and even jealousy, I fell down alone on the day when I rushed out of my son's wedding. The son I gave birth to with great difficulty actually thought I was an embarrassment and wanted to leave me in the countryside to fend for myself. But why? Over the years, if it hadn't been for me taking care of the several elderly people who fell ill one after another, how could Ethan have lived a peaceful life? If Ethan hadn't secretly written Snowy's name on my application form for becoming a regular employee back then, how could I have wasted my whole life in the countryside? If I hadn't risked my life to give birth to my son and taken good care of him until he was 5 or 6 years old, where would he get the life to despise me and look down on me? He thought I was an embarrassment? Ha ha ha. I looked at my still fair hands and my eyes gradually became firm. In this life, whoever wants to be the sucker can go ahead. And I just want to take back what belongs to me. 03. I looked down at the application form tightly held in my hand and then at Ethan who was stretching out his hand towards me. I clearly saw a flash of displeasure in Ethan's eyes, but he still held it back. Lana, be good. Give me the form. I subconsciously put the form behind my back and, under his astonished gaze, quickly handed the form to the staff at the window. Seeing Ethan's face change drastically, I almost couldn't hold back my tears. Fortunately, I had been reborn. In this life, I still had time to submit the form. Only when I became a regular employee could I apply to set off with the petroleum exploration team. I hadn't married Ethan yet. Everything was still in time. 04 On the way back, Ethan followed me with an ugly expression on his face. When we got home, I saw a woman outside the courtyard gate anxiously looking up frequently and looking in our direction. Seeing us coming back, Snowy was overjoyed and came to greet us, brother Ethan. I didn't know if Ethan had given her a hint behind my back. I only saw Snowy's face freeze for a moment and then she just nodded to me reservedly. Ha ha ha, has the supporting female character changed to the female lead script? She actually submitted the form herself? Damn it. The supporting female character is going against the heavens. Well done, supporting female character. The subtitles in front of me suddenly increased. I paused in my steps, walked past Snowy, and went back into the house. After closing the courtyard gate, the gaze that had been sticking closely to me was finally cut off. 05 Back in the familiar courtyard, I went into my own room and locked the door. Leaving other things aside, what those subtitles said was quite right. In my previous life, in order to prevent me from entering the job, Ethan deliberately made me catch a cold the day before. In that previous life, things went as he wished. But what I got was a miserable life. In this life, I had already submitted the application form and soon I could apply to go to North China. I took out a piece of letter paper and immediately started writing the application. Lana, the meal is ready. Come out and eat. Ethan suddenly shouted. I came to my senses and looked at the door. Ethan, who had never stepped into my room before, was actually asking me to eat? After a while, I just said, oh. I wanted to see what tricks Ethan was going to play. 06 Outside, Snowy had already left. On the square table in the main room, there were 3 dishes and 1 soup. We ate in silence. After I cleared the dishes and went back to my room, he followed me and Lana, let's talk. I remained silent. After a while, he said, next month, we're going to get married. Are you sure you really want to enter the art troupe? Except for having a good voice and singing well, you don't have many other advantages. Instead of occupying the position, it's better to give it to someone who needs it. What do you think? I sneered. If I hadn't been reborn, if those subtitles hadn't reminded me, I would really have thought that he was doing it for my own good. Give it to someone who needs it? Who is the one who needs it? So, you've always told me not to fill in the form because you wanted to give the form to that someone who needs it? My series of questions made Ethan frown. Damn it. Is this the male lead? Is there such a shameless male lead? Ugh. Author, don't disgust me. Is the male lead's values so wrong? Supporting female character, don't. Don't be PUA'd, don't be brainwashed. Please. I looked at the floating subtitles and couldn't help but curl the corners of my mouth. Ethan seemed to have never expected that I, who had always been docile, would refute his words. He opened his mouth and his face looked ugly. 07 In my previous life, in order not to let me know about this and expose the fact that he hadn't submitted my application form at all, he made me blow cold wind all night. In the end, he gave the quota to Snowy. Perhaps out of guilt, during the 3 days when I was sick, he took meticulous care of me, which really moved me. But later, I spent a full 30 years repaying it. Actually, after my son was taken away, I really hoped that I could also go to the city. I missed Ethan and my son. For many days and nights, I wanted to be with them earlier. And this longing lasted for 30 years. During those 30 years, the 3 days when Ethan took care of me became the warm colors in my life. So I was willing and even glad to stay in the countryside. But in the end, I realized that it was actually a carefully designed scam. After waiting at home for 2 days, I finally received the official notice of employment. In a blink of an eye, I submitted the application to go to North China again. The secretary didn't expect that I wouldn't stay in the art troupe but wanted to do census and exploration work instead. Secretary, we've finally taken off the hat of an oil-poor country. Now is the time for everyone to contribute. I'm willing to make a modest contribution for our country. The secretary saw that I was determined and approved my application. And he told me that I could set off with the main force in 3 days. When I got home, I cleared out most of my things in the room. I sold some books and test papers. I threw away the worthless small ornaments. I didn't have many clothes, and they could all be packed into one bundle. After packing these things, I took half a piece of cured meat and went to the street corner to Master Chen's house, who was in charge of arranging banquets. As early as half a year ago, on the day when the wedding date was chosen, I had already come to Master Chen's house early and paid half of the deposit for the banquet. Master Chen was a good cook. It was said that his ancestors had worked as imperial chefs in the imperial city. In my previous life, in order to make the banquet for my wedding with Ethan look better, I reserved Master Chen's time on that day at the first time, and I used the money I had secretly saved by myself. Now, I came to cancel the banquet. I looked embarrassed. Uncle, you know, he's going to be promoted next month. It's hard to say what will happen later. With a look of inferiority and timidity, Master Chen sighed, turned around and went back to get the money. He took a puff of his dry tobacco pipe. It's better to cancel it first. Otherwise, after you get married, alas. Although Master Chen didn't say much, everyone's eyes were sharp. In recent years, although Ethan had been engaged to me, he always put Snowy and her daughter first. Everyone more or less saw this. Uncle, please keep this a secret for me today. Otherwise, I really won't have the face to see anyone. Master Chen waved his hand, took my half a piece of cured meat and turned back into the house. After coming back from Master Chen's place, I gathered all the money I had. I calculated that I didn't have much money saved by myself. The main part was the deposit for the banquet that I got back from Master Chen. All the money added up was only a little over 300 yuan. But fortunately, I had become a regular employee now, and my monthly salary would be more than 10 yuan higher than before. Since I was about to leave soon, I decided to be extravagant for once and go to the state-owned store to buy myself 2 sets of sturdy and durable clothes. Especially the liberation shoes. I also needed to prepare several pairs. I kept some money with me and hid the rest before going to the state-owned department store on the street. There weren't many styles of clothes here. After looking around, I only chose 2 polyester cotton shirts, 2 black trousers, and several pairs of liberation shoes. When I got home, Ethan had already come back. As soon as he saw me, he frowned and said, "Where have you been? Why are there so many things missing from home? And what are you packing your bundle for? Where are you going?" At this time, those words floated up again. Wow, is the supporting female character going to wake up? Is she really leaving? Supporting female character, run. Don't stay and be a tool person. To be honest, this male lead is really disgusting. I originally wanted to give up reading, but now I want to see how well the supporting female character lives after leaving. Let the male lead regret it. I suddenly realized that only when Ethan was by my side could I see these floating subtitles. Perhaps this was what was said in the subtitles, the configuration of the male lead and the female lead? Because Ethan was the male lead, that's why I could see these? I shook my head and then said, "You used to say that there were too many odds and ends piled up at home." I threw some of them away. I pointed to the packed bundle again. "These clothes are old. I bought 2 new ones." Ethan visibly seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. "Did you go to buy clothes?" After saying that, he muttered to himself, "We're getting married next month. You should buy more clothes too." I paused when I heard his words. Getting married. In this life, there's no way I'm getting married. As for you, you can marry whoever you like. In my previous life, whether before or after getting married, I was reluctant to buy things for myself. Even the clothes I wore were the ones that I had worn for years, mending and patching them up time and again. But what about Snowy, who had always been by his side? She not only lived a good life, ate well, drank well, but also was willing to spend a lot on her clothes. No wonder my son looked down on me, his biological mother, in my previous life. I dressed like an old rural woman, while Snowy was like an elegant lady. Anyone wouldn't want their own mother to be so embarrassing, right, brother Ethan? Outside, Snowy's voice came. I heard Ethan bring her in. "Brother, is sister-in-law here?" She's going to give me the quota for becoming a regular employee this time. I'm really so grateful. This is a chicken raised by my family. I brought it here to help sister-in-law build up her health. I frowned and sneered. When did I say I would give her the quota for becoming a regular employee? By then, Ethan had already brought her in. Snowy was wearing a floral shirt, and her 2 braids were neatly combed. As soon as she came in, she bowed to me gratefully. Sister-in-law, thank you so much. Brother said that you've decided to give me the quota for becoming a regular employee. I'm really so grateful. This is a chicken raised by my family. You must accept it. Before I could say anything, Ethan came over and pulled me aside. Lana, what do you think we should do about this? I looked at him indifferently. What do you mean by what should we do? Ethan paused for a moment before saying, Snowy must have misunderstood. She thought you were going to give her the quota for becoming a regular employee. Look, she's already come to thank you. You see, Ethan didn't say anything more, but looked at me expectantly. I found it funny. So, what's your opinion? I just had to make Ethan spell it out clearly. Ethan's gaze turned cold. After a moment of silence, he said, although Snowy has misunderstood, we're neighbors. To avoid future awkwardness, you see, do you think it's better to just give Snowy your quota for becoming a regular employee? As soon as Ethan finished speaking, I slapped him hard with a smack. Under Ethan's disbelieving gaze, I coldly walked up to Snowy. Do you think that with the 2 of you playing off each other like this, I'll give you my job? Dream on. I threw the eggs she brought directly out. Get out of here. Trying to exchange a chicken for an iron rice bowl? Do you think I'm a fool? Wow. The supporting female character is so powerful. She's finally stood up for herself. The supporting female character is so cool. I thought she would be so brainless that she would be too embarrassed to refuse and just give up her job. The male lead and the female lead are really disgusting. Perhaps Snowy didn't expect that I would tear the relationship so mercilessly. Her face changed, and she covered her mouth, looked at Ethan pitifully, and then covered her mouth and ran out. Ethan wanted to leave, but I stopped him. I don't care if you give all your own things to that widow. But if I find out that you use my things or my job to do favors again, Ethan, you know, I won't let you off. At this moment, there was no longer any affection for Ethan in my eyes. Ethan opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but under my cold gaze, he finally fell silent. I sneered. Look, it's not that he doesn't know anything about propriety, righteousness, honesty, and shame at all. It's just that he took advantage of the fact that I loved him and had him in my heart, so he could be so unscrupulous. As soon as I returned to my room, I heard someone come to the door. It seemed that something had happened to Snowy. When I came out of the room, I found that Ethan and the person who came had already left in a hurry. I didn't take this matter to heart. I separated the money I had on me. I carefully sewed part of it into a slightly thicker coat. The other part was sewn into another vest. After doing this, I went out to buy some vegetables. Anyway, I was leaving soon, so I only bought enough vegetables to last for these 2 days. But when I got home, I found that the front door of the house was wide open. I thought Ethan had come back. I looked around a few times but didn't see anyone. Subconsciously, I went back to my room and saw that the bundle I had finally packed was opened, and the clothes, both tops and bottoms, were scattered all over the floor. My heart skipped a beat and my breathing quickened. After searching for a while, I finally found the 2 old clothes in the corner of the floor. I reached out and touched them. Fortunately, the money I had just sewn in was still inside. I was still worried, so I took scissors and carefully cut it open. Only then did I find that the money was still inside. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, I found that the liberation shoes and new clothes I had bought in the afternoon were gone. Besides, the dozens of yuan I had put in the bundle were also missing. My head buzzed. I put down the things and went to Ethan's room, only to find that his room was neat and tidy, without any sign of being rummaged through. I then thought of Ethan being called away in a hurry in the afternoon, the open door, and only my bundle that had been rummaged through. What else was there to not understand? If it was a thief who broke in, they definitely wouldn't have only rummaged through my bundle. Ethan had taken my money. I gritted my teeth and was about to go to the police station with a surge of anger when I saw Master Chen, who was in charge of arranging banquets in the village, enter my house with a fierce look on his face and a dark expression. As soon as he saw me, he pointed at me and couldn't say a word for a long time. I was stunned. Why would Master Chen come to my door at this time? After asking, I found out that just now Ethan had gone to find Master Chen and asked him to refund the money for the banquet I had reserved before. He said he needed the money urgently. I sat down in a daze after hearing this. Master Chen looked at me with a look of hating that I couldn't make a better choice. I asked your man. I asked Ethan that kid. He said that someone was sick and he needed to take the money to save them first. I deliberately asked again, what about the banquet on your wedding day if the money was taken away? Do you know what he said? He said either postpone the wedding or you two just go and get the marriage certificate directly. The banquet could be postponed for now. He said you were a good girl and wouldn't mind these things. Master Chen's chest heaved up and down as he said this. He didn't want to say much more about other things. He just said that he had muddled through this matter for now and let me decide what to do. After saying that, he shook his head and walked out. I saw him off and then sat down in a daze. Master Chen was good at cooking and had an upright character. If it were someone else, this matter could have spread all over the nearby streets by the next day. If I were still the same as I was in my previous life, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to hold my head up under the mocking gazes of everyone for the rest of my life. Ethan is really something. I guess it was all for Snowy again. I couldn't swallow this anger. After thinking about it again and again, I finally got up and went to the police station. Since Ethan didn't care about anything when he did things, then there was no need for me to cover up for his mistakes anymore. I was just worrying about not having a proper reason to break off the engagement, and now he just delivered it to me on a silver platter. On the way, I messed up my hair and rushed into the police station with tears in my eyes. Help! My house was burglarized. Oh my God, all the money in the house is gone. I stumbled and rushed in. When the police on duty heard this, they were shocked. Soon, 2 of them followed me back home. The neighbors on the street who saw the police coming were curious and followed behind. After asking, they found out that my house had been burglarized and all my belongings had been stolen. Many people couldn't sit still and hurried home to check if their money was still there, and I led the 2 police officers straight to my room. The clothes scattered on the floor hadn't been cleaned up yet, and they were all over the floor. Outside the door, people who came to watch the excitement were crowded together. I wiped my tears and said, everything was fine when I went out to buy vegetables. But when I came back, it was like this. Not only the money inside, but even the several clothes and shoes I bought today are gone. Comrade, you must help me. I sat on the ground crying pitifully. The 2 police officers were quite experienced. They saw that only my room had been rummaged through and the clothes bought today were missing, so they could tell that it must be an acquaintance who committed the crime. The moment the police reached this conclusion, the neighbors nearby exploded. It was an acquaintance who committed the crime. That meant their houses might also be targeted. How could this be allowed? This time, the people who had just run home to check if their money was still there also came back. There were crowds of people outside my house, and it was really lively. Just as everyone was talking about it, Ethan appeared in everyone's sight, carrying a child and followed by Snowy. If it were normal times, it wouldn't be a big deal. Even if people thought that Ethan and Snowy were close, they would just talk about it privately. But now, something serious had happened at Ethan's house, yet he was walking intimately with another woman. Those who couldn't stand it just spoke up directly. Ethan, why are you still outside? Your house was burglarized. Hurry back and have a look. Yes, go back and have a look. Lana has been crying for a long time. Why are you still outside? The words of the neighbors and their ambiguous gazes made Ethan and Snowy uncomfortably distance themselves from each other. Snowy took the child and left. Only then did Ethan enter the door surrounded by everyone. As soon as he entered the door, he frowned. I took the lead and told him about the burglary at home with great grief. Of course, I emphasized that even my newly bought clothes had been stolen by the damn thief. During this time, Ethan's face turned green and then white several times. He wanted to say something several times, but after seeing the indignant gazes of the neighbors, he swallowed his words again. Ethan pulled me aside with an ugly expression. Why did you call the police? This? I took the money. I needed it urgently. I was stunned. What did you say? You took the money? Ethan nodded and signaled me to keep my voice down. I asked again, what about the clothes and shoes? What did you take my clothes and shoes for? Ethan was silent for a while. I thought Snowy's clothes were old, so I thought. I let out a howl and pushed Ethan away. You bastard. You said you took my money and gave it to that widow, and you also gave her my clothes? Ethan's face changed drastically and he was about to cover my mouth. Keep your voice down. I called the police just to make this matter a big deal. How could I listen to him? I pushed him away again and rushed to Snowy's house instead. While running, I shouted, oh my God, you took my money and gave it to a widow, and you also moved my clothes and shoes here. Snowy, come out. I kicked open the door of Snowy's house and rushed straight into her room. By the time the neighbors and Ethan who were following behind came in, the clothes in Snowy's room had been rummaged through by me everywhere. Brother Ethan. Snowy originally wanted to come and fight with me when she saw me rummaging through things as soon as I entered the door. But when she saw Ethan following behind, she went limp and fell down. Ethan quickly caught her. In broad daylight, it was really scandalous. I didn't care about their tugging. I quickly pulled out all the things in her wardrobe. Sure enough, I saw the shirt I bought and the new shoes beside the bed, but seeing these, I didn't stop. I threw my clothes and shoes at Ethan's feet while pulling open the drawer of her wardrobe. Ethan, you're really something. You actually took my clothes and gave them to this widow. Where's my money? Give me back my money. As I said this, I pulled the drawer out forcefully. With a clang, a lot of money floated out of the overturned drawer. Snowy couldn't pretend to be reserved anymore and rushed over to snatch the money from me. Stop it. This is my money, mine. Lana, stop it. Ethan wanted to come and help, but he was held back by the quick-handed neighbors. Soon, the two police officers who had followed also finally pushed through the crowd and rushed in. Stop! What are you doing? In full view of everyone, I, Ethan, and Snowy were taken to the police station. The matter was quickly investigated clearly. There was no burglary at home. Ethan had taken my money and given it to Snowy. And he had also taken my clothes and shoes and given them to Snowy. I still remember that when the police asked Ethan why he took my money without discussing it with me, Ethan even said righteously that Snowy's child was in urgent need, and he didn't think much about it at all. However, the police went to the hospital to check the records and found that Snowy's child just had a common cold. There was no need to spend so much money at all. Ethan didn't believe it. He said that according to Snowy, the child had a chronic disease and needed a lot of money for nutrition and conditioning in the long term. It was not until the police put the records they had obtained from the hospital in front of Ethan that he finally fell completely silent. Since I and Ethan weren't married yet, whether his taking my money was a big or small matter depended entirely on whether I wanted to hold him accountable. That night, Ethan stayed at the police station, and I went back home by myself. Throughout the night, the neighboring neighbors, the village chief, and Ethan's parents came to my door one after another. Their intention was the same. Everyone asked me to let it go. I was persuaded by them and was willing to not hold Ethan accountable. However, I must break off the engagement with him and Ethan must compensate me for all my losses. At first, Ethan's parents didn't agree. They thought that since I was about to marry Ethan, there was really no need to make such a big fuss over such a small matter. I remained silent and didn't respond no matter how much they talked. Finally, they had no choice but to write a letter of breaking off the engagement, return the losses of my clothes and shoes, and give back the money that Ethan had taken from me. Only then did I agree to go to the police station with them the next day. That night, I packed my things and went to stay in a hotel directly. When I passed Snowy's house, I found that her house was pitch black. A neighbor snorted coldly and said to me disdainfully that Snowy had left in a hurry with her child after coming back in the afternoon. The next day, I went to the police station together with Ethan's parents and the village chief. This matter was defined as a family affair, and Ethan was allowed to go back. After I signed the papers and came out, I saw that Ethan's parents had already left, and he was waiting outside alone, looking at me as if he wanted to say something but held back. Judging from his appearance, it seemed that he should already have known about my breaking off the engagement with him. Lana, I'm sorry. Ethan lowered his head and seriously said sorry to me for the first time. However, I wouldn't accept it. In my previous life, I spent my whole life but couldn't get a kind word from him or my son. In this life, I would never have anything to do with him again. It was rather ironic. That day, in order to get money for Snowy, he rummaged through my bundle and didn't leave me a single penny. But the money I found in Snowy's drawer seemed to be as much as 700 or 800 yuan. I guess Ethan must have given all his monthly salary to Snowy without leaving a penny for himself. I just wonder how he would feel when he found out that Snowy, who he had always thought was in a pitiful situation and needed someone to take care of her, had been lying to him all along. After coming out of the police station, Ethan followed me all the way to the hotel. Even in the evening, he was still at the door, wanting to have a talk with me. However, I had nothing to say to him. In this life, being able to draw a clear line with Ethan is the greatest luck for me. The next day, I took my bundle and went to the place where the main force gathered. There were more than 1,200 people in this petroleum exploration team. Under the leadership of the organization, we set off for all parts of the country and carried out petroleum exploration within the area of more than 200 square kilometers designated by the superior leaders. There were more than 30 people in our team. After walking on the road for 7 or 8 days, we finally arrived at the place where the tasks were assigned this time. As soon as we arrived, everyone took drilling rigs and tools and followed the team leader to run around everywhere. However, often the places we went to were fruitless. Not to mention petroleum, we didn't even drill a single water well. After such a long 4 years, we finally found an oil field in North China following the oil fields in Northeast China. When the black petroleum gushed out under the drilling rig, my comrades and I hugged each other and cried. After 4 years, we finally lived up to expectations. In this year, our deeds were reported in major newspapers. The hardships we had endured and the efforts we had made in those years finally paid off. Not only us, but also the people all over the country felt extremely proud. When I came back again, it was already 5 years later. In this year, I was preparing to hold a wedding with my fiancé in my hometown. The wrong choice I made in my previous life didn't stop me from loving again. On the contrary, I understood that love should be a match between equals. All my life, I will always keep it in mind. Love others, but also love yourself. If you love someone so much that you lose yourself, become humble and timid, and lose the ability to survive, then no matter who it is, they will look down on you. Ethan, extra story, it was only at the moment when Lana made a fuss that I realized that I had been terribly wrong all along. The Snowy and the child who I thought needed my help turned out to be lying to me all the time. When the police put the hospital records in front of me, when everyone looked at me with a look of hating that I couldn't make a better choice, I felt so ashamed that I wished I could slap myself several times. I thought Snowy needed help, so I gave her all my monthly salary. I thought the child had a chronic disease, so I spared no effort to help her. I thought Lana loved me, so I was unscrupulous. However, when I thought of the several hundred yuan that fell out of Snowy's drawer, I wished I could slap myself. Lana broke off the engagement with me. At the time when I thought she would never leave me and would love me forever, I waited outside the hotel for a long time that day. I thought that as long as I realized my mistake, Lana would surely forgive me. I waited outside the hotel for 3 days, but I never saw Lana come out. Later, I found out that Lana had left as early as the second day after she checked in. I went to the art troupe and only then found out that Lana had applied for a transfer, but no one told me where she had gone. People looked at me with very strange eyes. Even some young wives and sisters-in-law would spit in disgust when they saw me. I knew that everyone couldn't stand the stupid things I had done before. I also knew that I was wrong. I had been waiting for Lana to come back. But for a whole 5 years, there was no news of her at all. During these 5 years, my parents introduced several girls to me, but I refused them all. At work, there was also no improvement. The transfer that was supposed to be given to me became out of reach after that incident happened. Then one day, I saw Lana in the newspaper. Although it was just a profile, I still recognized her at a glance. She had changed and yet remained the same. She had become darker and wasn't as fashionable as before. However, the proud look on her bright smiling face made her seem to be shining all over. Later, I saw Lana again when she was getting married. I sat at the banquet, watching her wearing a big red flower on her chest. Watching her walk towards her husband step by step, suddenly I felt that everything seemed wrong. In a daze, I seemed to see the scene of me and Lana getting married. I saw the scenes of her giving birth to children for me. I stretched out my hand, wanting to hold on to that dream, but found that at the moment when I stretched out my hand, the happiness that should have belonged to me shattered into pieces. The end.